there and thanks for joining us. I am Obiora Ilo with your Sunday show Frontline. Well, in this passing week, there's been a lot of developments. Chief among them was the expected and eventual defection of some members of the PDP in the Senate to the new party. And of course, within the week, the new chairman of the PDP took charge, and we saw a lot of movement at Wadata House. Many state governments, many state delegations coming to pay courtesy calls and pledge their loyalty. Well, in our program today, we'll be looking forward for the party PDP with the new chairman, with all the solidarity visits to the new chairman. What is the future like? We'll be talking with the deputy organizing secretary of the PDP, Okay Naidozie, will be joining us in a moment. Also today on the program, we'll be looking at what the Constitution says about defections in political parties, and especially for those that are holding public offices, like those members of the National Assembly. What rights do they have under the Constitution to move from one political party to another? At what point should a member of a political party move from one political party to another? But starting our program, we are going to focus on education. A young man has come up, done a lot of research, and come up with an idea he has called No Child Left Behind. I'm talking about Ngozi Ochi. Ngozi Ochi is the chief social architect of a group called the Good Nigeria Initiative. Ngozi, you're welcome to our program. When you talk about education and you talk about No Child Left Behind, what is behind this idea?
Thank you very much, Obiora. I'm happy to be in your show today. I can tell you that all of us in Nigeria today already know how bad things have become in our educational system. It's gotten so bad, and it's gotten to the point where those who have the responsibility to find answers don't seem to be giving us answers. For many years now, the learning outcomes in our schools has been very poor. And so it got to a point where it shouldn't just be something we're going to sit back and wait till government can find an answer. And so we as an organization, the Good Nigeria Initiative, we decided to go out on our own and really get to grips with the problem. What is it? Why are children not learning in school? And so we came up with, ultimately, a way forward. And so what we have done is to put together what we titled the No Child Left Behind. And what that means is, in this country, we have two worlds. We have where you have kids at the age of 3, 4, they're able to read and write. And then we have kids who are at the age of 16, 18, they're still struggling to read. And most of those who you find be struggling to read are mostly in the public schools. And they constitute the major population. And so when you now have some privileged families having their kids go to the best private schools in Nigeria, and they're able to read at a very young age, and be able to read and write, why I keep saying read and write is that's the fundament. You can't learn without literacy. You can't learn anything else without literacy. So it's so fundamental that once you get literacy right, you can actually get everything else right. That's the way it should be. And so when we looked at it, we felt that something has to be done. If I'm able to send my kids to private school and they get good education, that shouldn't be the end of the story. The fact is that at the end of the day, my kids will end up in the same Nigerian space with these kids who are underserved with regard to education. And then what is going to happen? I don't think the future portends well for my own children and my grandchildren in the way things are going in the country. Okay. So that's why we went into this.
Yeah, before you go on, let's go to the basics. You've done a lot of study looking at education, separating it from literacy, and then bringing it down to the pedestrian level of reading and writing. In your research, in your study, what would you say are the basic problems of proper education, qualitative education in Nigeria?
Well, I can say that it's very foundational. The problem is really at the root of it. It's not something you deal with, I tell you, just somewhere up there. You need to get down to the root. What we found is, we've done a whole lot of research on this. What we found is, first of all, in the Nigerian educational system, we're having states will tell you, oh, enrollment is growing. We're enrolling more kids in school. But what we're seeing is that the kids are not learning. They are not learning. And so, at the end of the day, what we end up having is, during the WAEC exam, when it's just already too late, the results will show. But what we found is that education has two great goals. Two. To help young people become smart, that is intelligent, and to help them become good, that is to become people of character. Now, when you focus, first of all, on becoming smart, then you ask the question, where should we begin? Once you're able to answer that question and you can address it, you can transform education. And where that is with reading and writing to acquire functional literacy. It does not make sense to have our kids spend 9 years in primary education and they can't read and write. It doesn't make sense. And so we said it has to come down. The reason why the kids are not learning is because they are unable to read and write even up to primary 6 and secondary school.
Why are they unable to write? I mean,
to read and write. First of all, a lot of factors at play. A whole lot is at play here. First, you can blame it on the curriculum. We're using our outdated method of teaching kids to read and write in primary schools. They call it the whole language approach. That's what we're using. And it's not working. Okay? Now, not only that, when you talk about the quality of the teaching force, that's also a big challenge. You have teachers who are not well trained, not well motivated. You just seem like, oh, you could look for a job and you can't find a job. Then, oh, okay, let me just settle for teaching. The teaching profession should have the best. In countries like Japan, they have a policy. We keep the best for the rest. If you make a first class in a Japanese university, do everything possible to make you a teacher, to teach and bequeath knowledge to the rest. But here, the very best can't even think about teaching. So at the end of the day, what we have is a whole system that, if you look at here, it's a problem all over the place. But like I said, we must go down to the basics. Get it right. It does not matter even if you're in secondary school. If we find that you're unable to read and write, we should suspend every other academic program that you can read and write. It's as bad as that. It's only when you achieve that suddenly this child who ordinarily is not doing well suddenly begins to do very well. Because all they now need to do at that age is to apply their native intelligence. And suddenly they become bright kids. But academically, they will continue to struggle because of that inability. And so our organization, the No Child Left Behind, our goal is to ensure that every child should, maximum, age of 7, should be able to read and write. It is a right. It's not a privilege.
You know, my first contact with you about 3 years ago was when you were doing a small study in a village somewhere in Enugu State.
Correct.
Can you share with me what happened with the students you met, with the tests, what you call then literacy tests that you carried out?
Okay.
And the engagement you had with the teachers at that time?
Yeah, it's a wonderful story, really. At that time, I went home with my wife and with my daughter, and we were interacting with my relations in the village. It's actually my hometown that it happened.
Oh, I see.
It actually happened in my hometown. And in the course of the interaction, my daughter came over and said, there are some of our age mates in the village. Then she was about 12. I said, they can't read. I said, are you sure? We found out a few of them couldn't read that we were able to interact with. So I now decided to make it a bigger issue in the community. I decided to now invite every child in the community. It was during the holiday, long vacation. I entertained them. I got them into our town hall. I had nearly 200 kids. I entertained and I said, I'm going to give anybody who can read this text for me 500 naira. It was going to be a big hit on my pocket. But when you have 200 kids being able to read, man, that's 100K. But I was ready to do that because we found that it was just a problem. So it was to challenge them to see how the best of them can do it. So we entertained them. We asked them questions. In fact, the first thing we did was we asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? just more like, and I can tell you it was a harvest of ambition. Oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a pilot. I want to be, everything. Kids in the village. Then I said, but before you can be any of that, you should be able to read and write. So we have the relationship with the American Right to Read Foundation. So we have a reading competency material that we're going to administer. And I did it. I recorded every child on video from the beginning to the end. If you're able to read, it's not just about writing a report, it's about multimedia. I show you the video. The child can read or the child couldn't read. By the time we finished, it was dismal. I tested 188, only about 8 could read with competence. 8. Aged 7 to 16. It was that bad. So we said, we need to do something. We took our time and decided we're going to go see what we can do. So we reached out to Pearson, and they are the largest education company in the world. So we got talking, and over time we're able to come to, build a package of intervention, a way to intervene. First of all, it wasn't going to be something we're going to wait for government to give us approval, because that's what I keep telling people now. You can't say you have, become somebody in life when you can't go home and impact kids. So it's just, let's not wait for government anymore. So we went home. I invited all the teachers in my community, even some youth corpers, about 3 of them. I sat them down and I said, this is what I saw. I showed them the evidence. These kids are not learning. They can't even read and write. While the teachers got defensive. It seemed like...
And tried to give you
all the reasons. They even went as well, they owe us salary and this and that, and that, but I said, that's not the issue. We didn't come here to apportion blames. We came here for, how do we find a solution? And I told them, you know what? I have an idea. There's something we're going to do. We're going to train you over a week on a package, a way to teach literacy. And you're going to, all of you, you're not going to use government time, school time to do this. All we want you to do is to do it as an after school. Just as an after school. 1 hour after school, every month for the next 6 months, we're going to pay you 4,000 naira. They all accepted. And then we gave them the materials and they got to work. This program was implemented in 2 primary schools in my town and 1 secondary school. Secondary school, it was that bad too in the secondary. And after about, I told the teachers, every month everybody should write a report. I had coordinators, I had retired headmasters from my town. I got into the program. I said, just supervise. I had a coordinator and said every teacher should write monthly reports on what they are finding. And also, so when it began, it seemed like child's play, but I can tell you, by the 5th month, these kids sent the supervisors to tell me that I should now come back to the village, that they can read now. Yeah. That they can now read. I should come. And you know what? Even before I went, I was getting a report from the teachers. What their experiences. They told me there's no day on this program we spend the 1 hour we agreed with you, because these kids don't even want to go home. After the school, they are not ready to go home. If our son will come to them around 11 o'clock and say, Auntie, when are we going to start the other one? They found the program, what we call joy of learning. A way of learning that is so joyful. Because learning shouldn't be tedious.
I was going to ask you what they did specially in this, in this program.
It's a way
that was different from what they did every day in school. What excited their interest? What generated this enthusiasm?
They learned to read and write in a fun way. It's what we call sing, spell, read and write.
What did you call it?
Sing, spell, read.
Sing,
spell, read and
write. Okay.
36 steps to independent reading. Within 6 months of implementation, you can move from complete illiteracy to functional literacy. 6 months.
Have you tried to bring governments into the secret? Because I like to call it a secret. Because you find out that a lot of our young people go to school and they don't feel anything about school. Yeah. Have you tried to share this idea with governments, at the local governments, at the state level, and probably at the federal level? Have you made any effort?
Yeah, well, I think we have. We have made some effort. We've made some effort in the past, and it just seemed like, leaders just need to connect to this. Most times they just think, oh, we have all the gurus, the education gurus in the ministry, they should be able to figure it out. But they haven't. In the last 30 years, they haven't figured it out. So it's not for want of effort. But what I have now found, what we need is more what I call a Marshall-like plan on education. Massive. It wasn't going to be about government alone now. The government should never, I will keep telling government, you shouldn't just find a way to hand over education. Education is your number one responsibility.
Okay, right. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll talk to a senior advocate of Nigeria about the constitutionality of defections in the political parties. But that means that, because you're not going anywhere, because we need to now look at how we can replicate this experience in other places, and how we can engage government, engage individuals, and engage even communities.
Correct.
To see how this your idea will work. You're watching Frontline. Don't go away. We'll be back in a moment. Glad to know that you're still with us on the front line. And we are taking a little trip to Anambra State, and we are connecting with a senior advocate of Nigeria, Chief Emeka Ngige. Chief Ngige, you're welcome to our program.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, I don't know if you have followed the news in the past 1 week, more than 1 week, about the defections in the National Assembly. And when you talk to the PDP, they have what they tell you is what the Constitution says. You ask those of the APC or Labour, they have their own idea about what the Constitution says about defections, or what some people also call cross-carpeting. And I'm asking, you being a senior advocate of Nigeria, I'm sure, and you've handled a lot of election petitions over the years. Would you tell us what our Constitution says about moving from one party to the other?
Thank you very much. Well, the provisions of the Constitution relating to movement of a member of the National Assembly or any other legislative house from one political party to another before the expiration of his tenure is governed by the provision of Section 68, 1G of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That section provides that a member of the House of Reps or Senate who is sponsored by a political party and becomes a member of another political party before the end of his tenure shall lose his seat. But that section now made a proviso, and he said, provided that the membership of the latter political party that he will join another party was not as a result of a division in the political party of which was previously a member, or as a result of a merger of two or more political parties or factions, by one of which he was previously sponsored. So in this respect, that provisor is the issue in contention here. And it is an issue of fact as well as issue of law. The issue of fact, as in the case of the APC and PDP members of the National Assembly, was there a faction in PDP? And every Nigerian knows, to the best of my recollection, that there was a Baraje faction. And I know as a fact that the federal government, the presidency, sent a team of mobile policemen to seal off the secretariat. That alone confirmed that there was a faction. It doesn't matter that you seal off the secretariat of that faction. The faction can even exist on the internet. It can maintain a website which we call for membership and with which it could espouse its views and its stand on different political issues, its manifesto. And that is what I believe had happened. There was, in fact, a faction within PDP, Baraje faction. They had chairman, they had secretary, they had working committee, national working committee. And thereafter, they decided to merge with APC.
Okay, let me ask you.
That being the case,
yes.
That being the case, any member of that Baraje faction that subsequently defected or defects to another political party, particularly APC, is on a very firm constitutional ground.
Okay, I want to ask, I remember vividly that the courts, a competent court in Nigeria, said that there was no faction in the PDP. So how do you reconcile it with what you're telling me?
Now, that court's decision is a matter that is now on appeal. And even at that, the court cannot stop any member of a party from forming an association, even if it's a faction. It's a constitutional right. The Constitution used the word division, used the word faction, showing that it is something that the Constitution allows. And it doesn't matter how you did the faction. You can even do a faction of a party on the pages of newspaper. Calculate of a situation where they had an office, they had working committee, they had officers, and the government had to use police. They had to use the instrument of government machinery to cow down that faction. And then the court said there was no faction. I don't think it is right. It's not correct. And since it's on appeal, and there is an application for stay of execution of that pronouncement, they can go ahead with what they're doing.
Okay, let me take it further. Now we have this situation. Of course, you and I know that a number of senators from the PDP have already indicated by writing that they are jumping ship, that they are going to the other party. Whose responsibility is it to say when this matter comes up at the National Assembly, to say, okay, you have moved from one party to the other. You are no longer a member of the National Assembly. Where does that power lie?
Well, when you want to defect, the typical illustration of how to do the defection was done on the floor of the House of Reps. Here, the defecting members wrote a letter to the Speaker of the House of Reps informing him. And the Speaker read it on the floor of the House and respected their right to defect to another political party in accordance with the Constitution. Because the letter in which they gave to the Speaker stated clearly that as a result of the faction in our party, my last party, we have now joined this new party. And the Speaker allowed them. But in the Senate, I think partisanship is already taking its toll in the minds of the presiding officers. I expect them also to respect the provisions of the Constitution by reading the letter of the senators on the floor of the Senate and allowing them to change their positions. They remain senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but I believe that they now want to use strong arm tactics in forcing those senators to either rescind their decision to defect or to threaten them with the creation of their seat vacant. I think that is wrong, because we have witnessed other defections which did not attract this type of strange withholding of reading of a letter on the floor of the Senate.
Okay, the PDP senators have submitted a letter to the Speaker, to the President of the Senate. After some days and as we speak, that letter has not been read on the floor of the Senate. What options do they have?
You mean the senators?
The senators, yes.
Yes, the options they have is to insist on at the next plenary, which the Deputy Senate President promised, that at the next plenary on Tuesday, that the letter will be read out by the President of the Senate, and then they will move on from there. I hope that they will do like House of Reps and allow the Senate to remain the united, the visionary, and the conscience of the nation that we have known them to be. They should not allow partisanship or petty party interests to destroy the spirit of brotherhood that they have been enjoying on the floor of that Senate. Because Senate, to me, is one of the most matured institutions we have in Nigeria now. The way they treat issues have shown that most of them, reason beyond petty party politics or sentiments. So this issue of defection, they should take it easy, handle it with maturity, with caution, and with a kind of diplomacy, so that the unity they have been enjoying in that house will not be broken.
And if, and I say if with a lot of emphasis, the presiding officers declare their seats vacant, what options do they have?
Well, I don't think the senators will allow that to happen. I hope that between now and Tuesday, they should have gone to court to file an action to get a declaration, or to file an action for the court to declare that following what had happened, that the Senate President cannot declare their seat vacant. They should go to court before Tuesday.
Even without the Senate President taking any action?
Yes, because the body language, that inaction of not reading their letter on the floor, have already given them the signal of what they are up to. And there have been publication in the media that there have been a plan that the state of certain senators will be declared vacant if they see that the letter will be read. So I think they should also consult their lawyers and move ahead of the PDP on this issue. They should think fast, move ahead, and be on the next level before them.
Okay, Chief Emeka Ngige, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, I'd like to thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you, Odora. It's been a pleasure speaking with you this afternoon.
We'll take another break. When we return, we'll talk more about this new idea on how to make our children know how to read and write. Stay tuned. You're still watching Frontline on AIT, and still with me in the studio is Ngozi Ochi, Chief Social Architect of the Good Nigeria Initiative, and we are talking about the people-centered education for development. Okay, so we were talking about this idea you have that engages children, and in 6 months they can read better and write better. And I remember that before we took our break and then talked a little about defections, that I had asked you how you were collaborating with government and individuals and institutions to ensure that this works.
Yeah, like I said, we've made some effort in the past. We'll continue to make effort to get government to see why this has to happen. We know that there's really no other way. If you want to get education, you must go down to basics. Until you can get the basics right, nothing else will work.
Okay. I mean, it's like you're tilting towards some kind of private enterprise.
Correct.
Or self-help without government. How can individuals, I mean, I come from a community. A lot of other people watching us come from communities. How can we as individuals, buy into what you're doing?
Yeah, it's simple, because when we found, getting government to really see why this is the way to go was becoming a bit difficult, we felt that we have to get very creative on how this can work. And so we have developed what we call the No Child Left Behind, initiative. And what that means is that individuals can join us as a No Child Left Behind ambassadors, meaning you want to take it to your community. First thing is, we go to your community, we conduct a reading competency test, you have a clear picture of how good or how bad it is. And then it's going to require some resources. It's not going to take so much as what is being spent, on education. It works, it's simple. The way it works is, once you want to be part of improving your community, you join us, we partner with you, and then we leverage, what we call your social capital. What that means is, who and who can you bring on from your community, from outside your community, who can share your strong passion to make an impact in your community. Once we're able to get all of that together, we can come into your community, do all the demographics, get all the numbers, register all the kids to the program. Like I said, it's an after school. We come in, we train the teachers, provide the materials, learning materials, teaching materials for the teachers, learning materials for the kids, and then have our project team supervise and coordinate the program over a 6-month period. The way it works, within 6 months, you just transform education in that community. The kids can now read.
What kind of infrastructure do you need? I'm talking about human infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and otherwise. What kind of logistics can one work on? You talked about 200 children in your community. Using 200 children in every community, what kind of investment will somebody make? I mean,
because you see, the quality of materials we provide is...
Do you need to build new schools?
No, you don't need to do that at all. In fact, you don't even need to go looking for chairs. Because when I came to my community, the school, it was like I saw the dilapidation as well. But rather than go focusing on providing chairs and all of that, I decided, let me do something that is lasting. The little money I have, let me put it in something that is lasting. Even if the kids have to study under a mango tree, I don't mind. Get them literate. That's the goal. We're so focused on that. Get the kids literate. And don't forget, our program, when you say Good Nigeria, we are focused, first of all, because in the public school, the challenge is huge, majorly with literacy, before you can talk about character development. Because each time we go, we must carry character development alongside literacy. Because we keep saying education has 2 great goals: to help young people become smart and to help them become good. So we also have, part of our Good Nigeria initiative, we also have a character building program, a values-based program that we also build into this program. So it's not just about literacy. It's one-sided. We deliver on both. But where I'm going is, what does it take? The materials the teachers will use. Because one thing, something you were asking me earlier, we even found that these teachers can't even read themselves and write.
The teachers
themselves, they are also functionally literate. We found that. So what do? get them sacked, that's waste a lot of time. You get the unions on your back, and all of that. So we just said that we have a program that by the time we train the teachers and get them started, by the time the teachers are going, the first thing that will start to happen is that they start becoming literate themselves. The teachers themselves will now learn how to become literate. So it is like self-help. As they are getting involved in that program, they are helping the kids, they are getting literate themselves. We saw that. Some teachers sent me letters and said, do you know what? More than anything else, I myself have now learned how to read and write.
Based on the steps?
Based on the program. And so they just give them support. So we have a strong project team that will ensure that every step of the way, no child is left behind. Because there are 36 steps to independent reading. So you must follow those steps. So at every turn of the way, there are assessments. The children are going to get their workbooks, their materials. They are going to get the whiteboards. They are going to get the assessment book. Each child will have it. The way we want to do it, we don't want to, nothing should be left.
Is this idea you're talking about, is it internet-based? Is it IT-based?
No, because you see, most people keep talking about, use the internet and get to the rural. It won't work well yet. Where are the tablets? It's still expensive. These kids can't even know how to even get started. So for now, the focus is not using technology. Get them to read. Technology will now follow. It's when they are at that level, technology becomes...
They can go in search of technology themselves.
And then communities can decide to set up a computer, There's so much people can do for their communities. I don't know why we don't go home and see what's going on, what we can do. And we have all the problems. We can work in such a way that people will find no incentive to live in the city. Because most communities now have light. And so all you need to do is to build the human infrastructure in communities. Once you build it, you build an economy. Because one thing literacy will do, it will take away, on one fell swoop, about 40% or more of poverty. Literacy has been proven all over the world. Anybody who has access to education has nearly 70-80%, probability of making it in life compared to when you're illiterate. So the focus is there. It is people-centered. When you do enough of that, you now get round into the people. So the program, like I said, the way it works is it's simple, but the materials we are getting are all top-grade materials for the child, for the teachers. We are not paying...
Are they locally produced?
No.
Can they be locally produced?
Well, by the time we get to that point where our partners in the U.S. can give us the rights to, but this is from Pearson, and it comes from the United States. The material, I tell you, is first class. And we want to do that. See, when you take such things to the village, it shouldn't be only for the privileged. There's the quality of materials. We have worked out a whole range of things, how we're going to preserve it, carelessness on the part of the kids. We have so many things in place to make sure that the children will read and write and make, proper good use of those materials.
I'm a little worried about continuity. I mean, your program is like 6 months.
Yeah.
How do you sustain, the enthusiasm? How do you sustain the capacity for these kids to read? Of course, in 6 months, what you can read will be limited, no doubt. How do you expand their view?
Very good.
How do you take the next step? Or would it just end with...
No, it doesn't. The first step is learn to read. Then the next step is read to learn. Once we get this one done, they are able to read. We even found it in the village. Kids are looking for newspapers by the roadside, they pick it up and start reading. I saw it happen. When the enthusiasm, the joy they feel...
Like a blind man.
Yeah, suddenly can see.
I can see.
I'm telling you. So the next step is read to learn is community people come together. They set up what we call a human infrastructure development fund. You don't need to wait for government.
Is it huge? Is it a huge fund?
It doesn't have to be huge. All you need is you don't even need to build a library. Somebody could just donate to one room or two in his house. You just set it up. Then start doing book drive. So many of us, our kids, go to their rooms in the house filled with books. They are not reading them and they've outgrown them. Pack all of them to the village. Set it up. Then have little activities in the village that can encourage reading. It could be 500 naira if you can read 20 books. Then you have some retired teachers act as supervisors. You know, you do book report. You don't just say, I've read a book. You do a mini book report. You know, somebody collates it. The community says, we're going to pay you so much money just to coordinate these kids. But one thing is that the community is saying, at the maximum, the age of 7, every child in this community should be reading and writing. It becomes a law in that community. It's a right of every child, whether government or no government. When that happens, you see what will happen.
But I mean, you're like, government shouldn't do anything to help this process.
We've been waiting. Let me ask you, don't you have a generator at home? Why did you own a gen? Government is supposed to provide light. Government was supposed to provide water. Don't you have a borehole? People have done a lot of self-help when it comes to physical infrastructure. But when it comes to the real human infrastructure, we all think, oh, we should wait for government. Let's make government sometime do catch up. Right now, look at other sectors, power. They are doing catch up. They are now seeing the need to have the private sector come in. But even with education, no matter how it is, government must play a role. Because all the resources coming to government, they have no justification to ever say they don't have enough money to invest in education. Because that for me is number one. When Tony Blair was running for prime minister many years ago, you remember? He had 3 priorities. You know, number 1, education. Number 2, education. Number 3, education. That is what it should be. So it's that important. But like right now, we can't wait. All the restiveness, in all villages, you see young boys roaming the streets, roaming everywhere. They are rudderless. Do you keep waiting? Let the private sector come in at this time. Show government how it can be done. Then government can now tap into such a system. And when it taps into it, everything will begin to change. I see this country, education can be transformed in the next 7 years. It can be done. All it takes is, let's get down to the basics.
You talked about what you called ambassadors.
Yeah,
Did you say literacy ambassadors?
No child left behind ambassadors.
Ambassadors. How do you engage this group of people?
Yeah, they are individuals. We have a couple of them already. These are what people we call people who have made it in society.
They're like mentors.
They are not, well, in a sense, they are mentors, but they are the catalysts. That ambassador is going to be the catalyst for his own community. He's the one that will say, I want this. I want you guys to come with me to my community and implement this program.
Is it only is it not also applicable in the urban areas? You keep talking about the communities.
Yeah,
and the communities and the villages.
You know why I say this is because, yes, it can be done anywhere. But there's this sense of community about the rural area that makes it the best. Because one of the key parts of this program is to make the community do a buy-in. These people must come together and see a presentation that tells them where this is and where it could lead them and what ways to remedy it. So yes, anywhere could be a community. But once you can have this homogeneous group, kind of, who have a common, community, fellow feeling and stuff like that, they come together and say, our children must have a better future than ourselves. And then this is the first step we can do. And anywhere it has happened, they go back into the regular school system and they become high flyers. That's the way it works.
Okay, we've been speaking with Nna Agozie Ochi. Nna Agozie Ochi is the Chief Social Architect and Project Director of the Good Nigeria Initiative. And we've been talking about literacy and education for people-centered development. Nna Agozie, it's been quite a pleasure speaking with you. I wish you all the luck.
Thank you.
and we hope that very soon we'll become ambassadors.
Please,
I'd like to be an ambassador.
Please, we'll look forward to that.
And let me also apologize that our earlier promoted guest, the Deputy Organizing Secretary of the PDP, was not able to make it. I hope next Sunday we'll talk about the way to move the PDP forward. I want to thank you for your time, and let's do it again next Sunday. I am Obiora Ilu from Abuja, Nigeria, thanking you for being part of this.